Hi everybody, welcome back aboard Profiles from the Titanic on the Horizon's Edge channel, where we take a look at the people who unfortunately lost their lives on board the Titanic back in 1912. Now, a few profiles ago, we did a profile about Isidore and Ida Strauss. They had been married, for years and years. They were an elderly couple. She refused to get on the lifeboat because they said they lived their lives together, and so they would die together. And you tend to think, okay, well, maybe elderly people, they've been so attached and they've lived together and all of that, and that's an example of that. But in today's profile, John and Elizabeth Chapman, they were kind of the total opposite. They were pretty young. They were newlyweds. They had just been married 3.5 months when they set sail to begin their life here in the United States. They were originally from England when tragedy struck. But you're going to realize that even though they were newlyweds and only married for a little over 3 months, they still loved each other enough to say and make that same decision that they would rather stay and, yes, die together. Another tragic story, but again, love, it's very, very powerful. In this case, they knew what they were up against, and they still made that decision. So it's an incredible story. Again, just trying to find out a little bit more about these people and the incredible decisions they had to make under very difficult situations, right? So please hit the subscribe and the like button. Also the notification button. I try to get up a new profile about the beginning of the month, so that way you can be notified when I set it for its premiere. And today in the profile, John and Elizabeth Chapman. Thanks for watching. John Henry Chapman was born in Cornwall, England in 1875. One of 6 children, John grew up and began working alongside his father, who was a farmer. In 1906, at the age of 29, Chapman sailed west and initially settled in Alberta, Canada. A few years later, in 1910, he moved south with a friend and worked in a cemetery in Spokane, Washington. During all of this time, he had kept in touch with his sweetheart named Sarah Elizabeth Lowry, who was also from Cornwall. Elizabeth had been born in 1882 and was also the daughter of a farmer. She was still living in Cornwall when, in late 1911, she and John got engaged. In November of that year, John traveled back to England, and the two were married on Boxing Day, December 26th. By April of 1912, the young couple was ready to return to the United States to begin their life together. They booked second-class passage on the RMS Titanic and boarded at Southampton on April 10th. During the voyage, they made acquaintances with some others from Cornwall, including Emily Richards. Much of what we know about the Chapmans comes from Emily, since she survived the sinking. After the Titanic hit the iceberg, the group from Cornwall, including the Chapmans, waited on deck to be loaded into a lifeboat. Eventually, around 1:45 a.m., the Chapmans made it to lifeboat number 4, which was being loaded from the A-deck promenade by Second Officer Charles Lightoller. This boat was the same boat that John Jacob Astor IV placed his young pregnant wife Madeline into at around the same time. As Emily Richards climbed into the lifeboat, Elizabeth Chapman was right behind her. But as Elizabeth began to climb aboard herself, she realized that her husband John would not be allowed in the lifeboat due to Lightoller's women and children only mandate. She turned to Emily Richards and said, "Goodbye, Miss Richards. If John can't go, I won't go either." She stepped back and stood by her husband. Both John and Elizabeth died in the sinking. Elizabeth was never found, but the recovery ship later did find John's body. He was taken to Halifax and buried there at the Fairview Lawn Cemetery. Among the possessions he had on him was his wife's handbag and their marriage certificate. Also, a gold watch with the hands frozen at the time he went into the water was recovered. It has been on display since 2009 back in his hometown. Thanks for watching Profiles from the Titanic.